In the history of old money families in America, sadly there is perhaps no word more closely tied to public tragedy, accompanied by world-changing wealth and political influence, than the name Kennedy. And yet, what if we were to tell you that there is one particular family with more money than J.F.K. and his descendants could ever dream of, who seemingly courted tragedy and scandal at a breakneck speed that would make even a Kennedy shudder with pity? Indeed, in today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we'll discuss the monumental ups and downs, the unending valleys and peaks, and the catastrophic triumphs and losses in the life and times of the one-time richest man in the world and his heirs. In this shocking saga of wealth and woe, we'll find a humble industrialist work his way up to the absolute zenith of American wealth to become a multi-billionaire, only to disinherit his namesake son due to substance abuse and mental illness, echoing another family member's passing from the same affliction just a few short years later. Then we'll watch as one of the family descendants creates Hollywood's most iconic photography company, coinciding with a cousin being mired in Me Too allegations that threaten to obliterate the family's legendary reputation. And lastly, we'll bring you up to the present day, as Oscar-winning film directors create big-budget films discussing the family's seemingly endless woes, only to have that very same film almost get shelved because one of the actors playing the family patriarch also gets cancelled due to impropriety. Therefore, sit back, relax, and join us as we recount the insane story of the Gettys. Our story begins in the year 1855, under the shadowed skies of Allegany County, Maryland. Here, one George Getty was born, a harbinger of a family destined to wield immense power and wealth, but not without a cost. Young George's childhood was stained with hardship. After a move to Ohio, the child experienced the shattering loss of his father at just 6 years old. Yet, financial aid from his uncle Joseph lifted George from these early tribulations, steering him toward Ohio Northern University, and the industrious lad emerged in 1879 with a Bachelor of Science and an unquenchable thirst for more. Lured by the law, George further honed his intellect at the University of Michigan Law School, finally settling in Minneapolis to specialize in insurance and corporate law. But the year 1882 whispered something darker in his ear, a call he couldn't resist. Though George didn't formally enter the oil industry until 1904, this year marked a rebellious turn. Driven by a fascination with natural resources, he made a choice that carried an undertone of menace. He abandoned a thriving law career, pulling his family into the unpredictable whirlpool of the oil trade in Oklahoma. Soon, one element that accelerated George's rapid success was his uncanny ability to discern potential oil-rich landscapes, coupled with his knack for negotiating favorable drilling rights, blending technical acumen with business savvy. It's at this part in the story that we'd like to imagine George Getty living a life somewhat similar to Daniel Day-Lewis's character in the first half of the classic film There Will Be Blood, a shrewd and ruthless oilman whose ability to seize opportunity was both admirable and ominous, as it would eventually lead to his family's downfall. Indeed, under the flag of Minahoma Oil Company, George's gamble began to pay off in sums of wealth that bordered on the obscene, culminating in the family's 1906 relocation to Los Angeles, a move influenced by several factors. At the time, Los Angeles was not just an emerging hub for the oil industry, but also a burgeoning city offering the Gettys opportunities for business expansion and diversification. Additionally, the city's favorable business climate and newfound reputation as an oil town made it an ideal setting for the next chapter of their life, intermingled with promise and jeopardy. Soon thereafter came his son, Jean-Paul Getty, J. Paul, born in 1892 in Minneapolis, arriving on a stage set by his father's ambitions. Indeed, from his early years, J. Paul Getty appeared to be a living echo of his father George's intense obsession with business. You see, even as a child, J. Paul displayed an extraordinary focus and an insatiable curiosity, attributes that were both intriguing and unnerving to those around him. As the boy grew into young adulthood, the family sent him to the University of California, Berkeley, followed by Oxford. These institutions were selected for their distinguished reputations and the well-rounded education they offered, seen as ideal preparation for J. Paul's inevitable entrance into the family oil business. However, during J. Paul's time in academia, the Getty family's oil endeavors were in a state of dynamic flux, oscillating between booming prosperity and the challenges posed by an unpredictable market. Thus, As the family's fortunes soared, so did the gravity of their potential downfalls. The Getty narrative had become one of high-stakes risk, with the ever-present spectre of failure lurking in the background. By 1916, simmering tension had emerged between George and his son, J. Paul. George found himself increasingly uneasy about J. Paul's lavish lifestyle. His extravagant spending and penchant for the high life seemed to be in stark contrast with the weighty responsibilities that came with the family's growing business. This disquiet led George to make a pivotal decision. Upon George's mysterious death in 1930, the keys to this burgeoning empire slid into the hands of Sarah, his widow. Though not an outright inheritance, J. Paul was crowned president, an important, if comparably muted, nod to his growing influence. However, although George Getty put a slight legal stranglehold on his scion's direct route to power, little did he know that his son, J. Paul, would ascend to unparalleled heights, ultimately becoming the world's richest man at one point. Yet this glittering rise would come at an equally dazzling cost. Indeed, if George found himself at odds with his own offspring, J. Paul would soon find that the complexities with his children would make his father's concerns seem trivial by comparison. Over the next few years, J. Paul Getty would soon emerge as the undisputed captain steering the family's financial ship. The decade of the 1930s was a stormy period, not just for the Gettys, but for the world at large. The Great Depression raged, toppling empires of commerce and casting a pall of uncertainty across industries. Amid this economic maelstrom, J. Paul Getty and his mother, Sarah, took a significant step in 1934 by creating a trust with both of them as trusters. Ostensibly aimed at preserving the integrity of their underlying corporate assets, this trust set the stage for a protracted battle for control. However, over the years, J. Paul would make incremental but impactful moves to consolidate his power. And these financial gambits were anything but straightforward. They involved taking on substantial debt and complex negotiations that spanned years. He then gradually acquired shares, thereby accumulating the voting power essential to influence the trajectory of the family business. Indeed, it was a slow-burning coup, methodically executed. His mother, Sarah Getty, who had been the initial custodian of the family's legacy, found her control progressively weakened. Recognizing her son's relentless ambition and increasingly strategic grip on the family's assets, she was eventually forced to cede her role. J. Paul therefore wrested control, relegating Sarah to a position where she was granted an annuity, but stripped of her authority over the empire. However, under J. Paul's control, the family's fortunes soon reached a breathtaking precipice in 1949, a moment tinged with both audacity and foreboding. In a gamble that left even seasoned oilmen staggering, J. Paul sunk $9.5 million, equal to around $116 million in today's currency, into the barren landscapes of the Saudi-Kuwaiti border, a place where oil was at the time the stuff of myths. With a 60-year concession in his pocket, J. Paul played a waiting game, one that consumed 4 grueling years and an additional $30 million, or $369 million in 2023. But then, in 1953, the sands of Wafra yielded their dark treasure. It wasn't just oil, it was a vindication of J. Paul's near-reckless foresight. This breakthrough didn't merely add to the family's coffers, it transformed J. Paul into a titan among men, one of the richest in America, and indeed, the world. However, as his geologists turned barren earth into wellsprings of wealth, one could sense that each triumph was also a doorway to further unimaginable risks to the family name and the next generation. 6 years later, in the mist-veiled city of San Francisco, the 27th of July, 1959, Allegany Getty was born. As the granddaughter of J. Paul Getty and the daughter of Gordon Getty, heir to the vast family fortune and a significant arts patron, it would seem her life would be nothing short of a lesson in leisure. However, Gordon indeed had a complicated relationship with his own father, J. Paul Getty, which surely affected his children, such as Allegany. While Gordon was exposed to the fine arts and culture, thanks in part to the family's affluence, his relationship with J. Paul was often strained, a tangle of familial duty, expectation, and the heavy mantle of a complex legacy. Against this backdrop, Aileen's life emerged as a narrative far removed from the cliched scenarios one might associate with being an heiress. She would forge her own path, imbued with its own set of complexities and challenges, proving that vast wealth could not insulate her from life's vicissitudes. Her glittering early years found Dudley Moore on the piano keys at her engagement party, and she eventually married Christopher Wilding, a son of the iconic Elizabeth Taylor. Yet, behind the glitter lurked darker shades. Besieged by substance abuse, Aileen battled addiction to both alcohol and narcotics, a struggle that was not just a personal crisis, but also cast a long shadow over the Getty family's reputation. Coupled with these struggles were significant mental health challenges, episodes of depression and anxiety that compounded the impact of her addictions and took a toll on her well-being. Yet the most arduous challenge of her life came when she contracted HIV as a result of an extramarital affair. This seismic revelation was more than just a personal medical crisis. It ignited a media firestorm and added a layer of scandal to an already complex family narrative. At the same time, J. Paul Getty, the family patriarch, wove his own turbulent narrative. With a history of 5 marriages, his personal landscape was a labyrinth of emotional and financial conundrums. Intriguingly, only one former spouse, Louise Lynch, found mention in his will, while Penelope Ann Kitson, an Englishwoman who never took his name, garnered the largest bequest. Amid this personal tumult, J. Paul Getty was embroiled in an even more heart-wrenching family drama, most notably illustrated by the mental health and substance abuse challenges that haunted his own son, J. Paul Getty Jr. Naturally raised in the heart of opulence, Jr.'s struggles were incongruous with the glittering world that surrounded him. Much like his niece, his battle with depression became more complicated as he descended into heroin addiction, a dark path that led to multiple stints in rehabilitation centers. These struggles further deepened the emotional chasm between father and son, accentuating the already fraught nature of their relationship. Even financial support seemed conditional, exacerbating Junior's feelings of alienation. More shockingly, this dynamic became painfully evident when J. Paul Getty refused to immediately pay the ransom for his kidnapped grandson, J. Paul Getty III, citing that he has 14 other grandchildren and doesn't want to open a marketplace for kidnapped heirs. It was only after the kidnappers severed the young Getty's ear and sent it to a newspaper that the elder Getty relented and negotiated a deal for his release. These insanely tragic tales in the life and times of the world's richest man exposed the emotional detachment and complexities that were part and parcel of being a Getty, issues that reverberated well beyond the walls of their mansions and boardrooms, and serving as an open secret that added yet another intricate layer to their already complex public image. However, even with all that tragedy and heartache, the next generations of Getty progeny would actually bounce back and help the name become strong once again, before even more shocking revelations came to the surface. In 1971, the unveiling of the now legendary Getty Museum punctuated the family's towering influence. With its twin bastions in Los Angeles, the Getty Villa and Getty Center, the institution stands as a sanctuary of visual wonders, from ancient relics to modern snapshots. Drawing nearly 2 million pilgrims yearly, its hallowed halls and tranquil landscapes elevate it beyond mere tourist attraction. However, the museum's very existence casts a dual shadow, as a monument to amassed fortune and as a lighthouse for art appreciation. In 1976, J. Paul Getty took his final bow from the world stage, leaving a fortune that staggered the imagination, an estimated $4 billion or $27 billion in 2023 dollars. Yet his departure created not a smooth succession, but a labyrinth of financial and emotional complexity. While the bulk of his empire fed into the Getty Trust, guardians of the Getty Museum and other cultural monuments, sums were carved out for his children. These allocations set the stage for familial discord, turning immense wealth into a breeding ground for scandal and schism, casting a pall over the Getty legacy. In a bombshell moment that riveted society in 1984, the aforementioned Gordon Getty, the arts aficionado and Getty oil heir, was unmasked as leading a double life. 2 families, one his well-known spouse Anne and their adult sons, the other a secret enclave consisting of 3 daughters and their mother, Cynthia Beck, coexisted in a shadowy liminal space until legal battles over name changes and future inheritances pulled them into the public arena. The tumultuous revelations stirred the pot of the Getty family's already complex interpersonal dynamics, but the tremors didn't stop there. In 1986, The Getty Oil-Texaco merger erupted as a milestone. Its $10.1 billion price tag, or $54 billion in modern terms, was monumental even by the Gettys' lofty standards. This wasn't just a transaction, it was a tectonic shift. The family's financial future was now secure, but at the price of severing a generational tether to the oil industry, a cornerstone of their collective identity. And as if punctuating an epoch fraught with discord and drama, 1999 bore witness to the demise of J.Paul Getty III at just 54. His life had indeed been a series of tragic arcs, commencing with his nightmarish 1973 kidnapping, an event that scarred him in ways immeasurable and ineffable. The decades that followed were a maelstrom of addiction and mental duress, sadly by then a common occurrence in the family, a weight that would only be lifted by the next generation's will to power in Hollywood, which would also come with its own barrel of problems. In 1960, the world welcomed Mark Getty, another luminary in the famed Getty lineage. Born in Rome but raised in England, Mark's academic pursuits in philosophy and politics at St. Catherine's College, Oxford, set the stage for an illustrious career. But he wasn't just another businessman. Mark revolutionized the landscape of visual media. Getty Images soon dominated the market, a colossus in the field of stock photography, commanding the visual narrative that shaped public perception. Then, in 1992, Los Angeles welcomed Nats Getty into its complex fold. A dazzling blend of model, designer, socialite, and advocate for LGBTQ rights, Nats burst onto the scene in a style far removed from the reserved legacy of old money families like the Gettys. Nat's marriage to Canadian socialite and YouTube sensation Gigi Gorgeous was a spectacle that seemed almost surreal. This was more than matrimony. It was an event that defied societal norms, challenging the perceptions surrounding old money families and online celebrities, as if shattering the final remnants of a once conservative dynasty. And then, as if to remind the world that the Gettys were never far from tragedy, a dark spectre loomed ominously. This manifested most harrowingly in the untimely death of Andrew Rourke Getty. A grandchild of J.Paul Getty Jr., Andrew's life passed on February 1, 2015, in Hollywood, yet another family casualty to accidental substance overdose. His absence became a chilling reminder that the Gettys' wealth and prestige offered no shields against tragedy. In 2017, legendary film director Ridley Scott brought the Getty enigma to the silver screen in All the Money in the World. However, even this film quickly gained controversy, as initially the film was to feature Kevin Spacey portraying J.Paul Getty Sr., only to have the notoriously intense allegations surrounding the actor require the studio to not only remove Spacey from the cast, but refilm every single scene he had already recorded. Then came Trust in 2018, a television series helmed by Danny Boyle. Featuring Donald Sutherland, Harris Dickinson, and Hilary Swank, the drama unfolded the early years of the Getty saga. It was as if the screen itself became a magnifying lens, focusing on the harrowing relationships that defined the family. As the calendar turns to 2023, the family is at a crossroads, poised between a future laden with possibilities and an arena fraught with challenges. The manner in which they navigate the resolution of recent scandals and the mounting media attention will be telling. These are the watershed moments where their capacity to uphold a lasting legacy in both philanthropy and business will be earnestly tested. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Which old money family would you like us to cover next? We've done everyone from the Rockefellers to the Kennedys and now the Gettys. We're sure you have a few family sagas, equally as dramatic as the Gettys, you'd like us to tell. Let us know in the comments, and we can't wait to hear from you. With that said, thank you again for your continued viewership here with us at Old Money Luxury, and cheers. Until next time.